Making the Invisible Visible, Black Women 365 Days of the Year. Each day will spotlight a remarkable woman whose story has shaped Black, British or global diasporic history. Women whose achievements are too often overlooked. Through these daily short films, we create a living, breathing archive of leadership, creativity, resistance and legacy. Let's begin.
My name is Claire Linney. I'm a children's author, and I think in my pursuit of wanting people to discover my books, I've become a go-to on social media for diverse book recommendations for kids and teens, and also for educational content around Black British history. I'm really passionate about championing diverse voices in the world of literature, especially for younger readers, and I want to make it easy for people to find those books and come across those authors, and also just make discovering Black British history much easier because it's still not widely enough taught in school. I didn't grow up learning anything, so I think part of my reason for existing, certainly in a social media and online space, other than with my children's books, is very much to kind of bring that Black British history to life. My day-to-day can look very different. I had a really interesting experience recently where I was trying to explain at a careers fair to a group of year sixes what it was like to be a children's author and what you needed. And I sort of said, oh, creativity and curiosity is really important. And then I started talking about logistics and managing emails and invoicing. And at one point, one of the boys cut me off and went, oh, so you're an entrepreneur? And I thought, oh, yeah, actually, that's a really good way of putting it. I think especially because I'm an indie author, I'm a self-published children's author, there's so much more that goes into things other than just writing the book. And I love that variety. I think that's one of the things I like about it. I don't think I could just sit down and write every day. I think it's being able to do all these different things that sort of ladder up to either being a children's author or being able to champion diverse books that, yeah, really kind of gets me excited and gets my creative juices flowing. Reading Black Tudors, The Untold Story by Miranda Kaufman on maternity leave. It was like a small bomb went off in my head because I suddenly realized I had no idea about any of this history. And of course, I'm looking at my son who's just been born thinking, well, how is he going to uncover this history? And that was really the seed that grew into the idea that was my children's book series, Time Tub Travelers, because I think combined with the love of Doctor Who and just sci-fi in general, I was like, well, I can't write historical fiction. I'm not a history expert, but I was like, I can write time travel because that's science fiction. So I'm, my imposter syndrome was like, you can totally write about history if you do it through time travel. But I think if I hadn't read Black Tudors and I hadn't gone on this sort of journey of discovering all these other books for adults and for kids around Black British history, I don't think I would have become a writer because I loved the idea of writing a book, but I'd never had an idea that I felt really passionately or really strongly about. Now I think I just want to write and I have so many more ideas, but that really, I guess that was the kindling or the spark that really lit the flame, which sort of propelled me forwards. I think maybe one of the things people might not realize about me is I do have huge imposter syndrome about being a writer. I think because I come across as being incredibly confident and self-assured on social media. A lot of that is video editing, and I'm good at talking. I go through waves, and there's always a point at reading the book where I'm like, oh my God, I've forgotten how to write, and this is terrible, and this is never going to go. And I really have to walk myself back from the ledge and remind myself that I can write and there are people who've enjoyed my books. But I think that there's a certain element to social media where it's not that showing vulnerability is bad, but I think because I talk about Black British history a lot, I can get trolled a lot on social media. I can get a lot of very negative comments, and I've had to learn to develop quite a thick skin. So I think because of that, I am a little bit more reticent to show too much vulnerability on social media, because I need to keep that separation and that distance. So I try and keep my overwhelming imposter syndrome about my writing a little more to myself. I do keep messages that I've had from parents whose kids have really loved my books, or they've read one of my books and it sent them down wanting to explore more about history, or they've just really enjoyed the book and stayed up late reading it. So I do keep those messages for when I'm doubting myself more, to kind of ground myself back in, no, you do know what you're doing, and your books do have a place for children, and you should keep going. Sometimes whenever I'm starting to feel frustrated about things not happening or things not being where I want to be, because I think you can get very caught up in, especially if you're self-published, you can see your sales day by day, which is a wonderful thing and possibly the worst thing in the world. So you can get very caught up in the numbers. But I think when that happens, I try and put myself back into Claire 2023. If I told me 3 years ago that I would have 70,000 followers on Instagram, I would not have believed myself. If I said you will have sold over 4,000 books, I wouldn't have believed myself. So I think it's just reminding myself that all the things that I have achieved and all the things that have happened would have seemed incredulous 3 years ago. And I think it's fine, because your goalposts do move. And the problem is, every time I get to here, my sights just go, oh, okay, well, that's the next step up. So I'm my own worst enemy in that case. And I do sometimes buy myself the occasional present. I bought myself an orchid the other day. I do like little small self-rewards as well, to kind of take that moment and say, no, this is something you should mark in some way.
Thank you for joining us for today's story. Making the Invisible Visible is our commitment to ensuring that Black women's histories and contributions are recognised, valued and kept in daily circulation. Across 2026, we will continue to share these powerful narratives, 365 days of impact, brilliance and inspiration. Stay connected, join the conversation and help us champion the women whose journeys continue to shape our world. I'm Paulette Brooks, and I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow for the next story.